got a friend in common actually. You're good pals with Jokey, right?
Oh, you're mates with Jokey?
Yeah. I just know him through the scene in Scotland and stuff. Good guy.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's a good mate of mine.
Are you not the godfather to his kid?
Yeah. He asked me if I could be, and we decided the Southern Hemisphere godfather to his kid, which I thought was nice.
Yeah, it's sweet.
You know, because I'm obviously I was living in Edinburgh for a while, and we became really good friends. And I haven't met Connell yet, but I'm really excited to meet him.
When was the last time you were over here? It's been a wee while.
It would have been. Well, we didn't go to Scotland, but for the Brixton Academy gig.
Which would have been start of last March?
Yes, which was March the 6th. And it seems like it was a lot of people's last gig.
Yeah, it feels like I was away to the calm before the storm, but I imagine it was chaos. The chaos before the storm.
Yeah, it was an amazing show for us, and like such a great venue, and to sell it down, and the fact that we were able to release so we recorded the show, and we had some video footage to it and stuff, and released a live at Brixton record, which was a pretty amazing and special thing to have, not only because it was the last show before Brixton, so before COVID, but I guess in this crazy year where you can't be playing live shows, which is like the main way that a band would market themselves, we were able to release a live album, which was kind of super special and get people excited for live music again.
I mean, you're speaking about the videos there as well. When you watch them back, you kind of get the sense of it being a moment, like a culmination of a series of things. You get that feeling from it. If we look back to, like, say, Hell's End, what had you learned in the period between that and Brixton as both a musician and a person that allowed you to get to that point?
It's funny with the whole, when Hell's End came out in our first EP, I was maybe 23 years old, still pretty young, not crazy young, but still pretty young. And I'm 31 now. So it's been a journey. I guess like any part of life, you pick up, it's all the little increments and little things you learn along the way. I'll tell you one thing, we don't drink as much before shows anymore. There was a few disasters early on, but you can kind of do that a little bit when you're only playing in front of 75 to 100 people, but when you've got 5,000 people, or, we're about to set our Ali Pally, which is 10,000 people, there's a lot more on the line. And I'm glad that we got that out of our system early, because we all take it super seriously now before gigs. And, and even the fact that the set, is probably 75 minutes now, or even longer after an encore.
You lost stamina.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I played it when we played the other day. I was like, I definitely wasn't gig fit. I was like exhausted after it, just having to just concentrating so much.
What's the last conversation before you go on stage at a show like Brixton? What's the kind of atmosphere? What's the vibe?
Oh, mate, we're just talking shit, to be honest. we don't do any of this group huddle kind of stuff. We're just like laughing, making dumb jokes. We're normally having a bit of a laugh, because we've got a thing now where we like to pick a walk-on song, which before we have picked. Actually, one of our walk-on songs was actually the original demo of Life is a Game of Changing, like the first kind of initial idea that was written. There was a song called I Don't Want to Get Lost. And we like walking, and we used to walk onto a mates of ours, Confidence Man. They did a remix of For Now, so we like to walk onto like remixes that our friends have done of our own songs and stuff like that. So we normally kind of just like, I don't know, have it, or we pick random songs actually, and so we're normally just kind of having a laugh, dancing around to that. But it's never that, we're never that serious before we go on stage. And I think that's a good thing. Obviously, you have to be ready and stuff for it, but you also have to be relaxed. And no matter how big a gig is, that you treat it like it's just any other show. You know what I mean? There's no. I don't think there's any point in like kind of being nervous or like wigging yourself out at all, because it doesn't really help the performance.
Just so that it stays like natural on stage.
Yeah, you're like, I've played these songs hundreds of times before, so and even like if you make a mistake, who cares? It's not even like the biggest thing in the world. It can be a bit embarrassing or something. But like at the end, afterwards, you're probably just going to laugh about it. I made a pretty big mistake the other day on stage, and I was really nervous. But after I did it, I was like, well, it can't get worse than this. So so then I was kind of not nervous anymore.
That's a pretty positive way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it. Kind of use it to feel you.
Well, there's a lot of important things going on in the world, and you playing a couple of wrong notes or fucking up a song isn't really the beat. It's not, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not going to end poverty or something like that. Like it's not that important.
When you were saying, you used to walk on to the demo version of Life is a Game of Changing, what was that? Was that just the beat? Was that a kind of earlier version of the beat?
No, it was the middle A. If you're gonna be there, are you gonna do it from the start? I don't know. It was literally a song that only had that part in it, but it had this.
And just loop it.
No, it had a really long electronic intro, and then that came in. I actually have to find it. I haven't listened to it for a while because since the song has come out, we stopped doing that. Even though it'd probably be cooler to do it and then play the song in the set, and people who know the song will probably actually recognize it now, because when we used to do it, the song hadn't been released, so people didn't know what it was.
So did you have that moment, that kind of bridge before you had the rest of the song?
Yeah. That was written like when Mason and I were living in Botany Bay, which was quite a couple of years before the album was released, maybe 3 years. And then when I was living in Edinburgh, I wrote verses and the chorus of that song. And then we worked out that we could join it with that initial idea that Mason and I had worked on in Botany for a couple of years prior, which is what we do. We do that a lot with music.
I mean, I remember before the last album, you kind of went into the vault and you've got this bank of songs. What's that kind of number up to at the moment, the kind of bank that you can pull from for ideas?
Well, I'll tell you, it's drained quite a bit after doing 3 albums and the EP, because that's like you've released 40 songs or whatever. But we're always writing and we're always working on stuff. But like I've still got a list, just my personal list of about, I think it's up to about maybe 60 or 70 songs at the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's kind of changed a bit. A lot of them now are, because I've been doing a little bit more electronic music. A lot of them are kind of normally only consist of like maybe 1 or 2 melodies in it, and it's more like energy based musically. But recently, because in COVID, I've had a lot of time to work on production and muck around with synths and do a lot of that kind of stuff, which I've been really loving. Also, recently, just kind of focusing on really getting back to core songwriting, which is kind of what we're best at, and getting back to basics and making sure that a song is kind of completed in its rawest form. That kind of cliche of everyone saying that you want to be able to perform a song on an acoustic guitar or a piano. And only when it's truly amazing in that form is it really ready to be given the attention and the love of production.
Yeah, it's like Cobra Kane, on the last record. That's one of the most electronic songs on it, but you could still perform that song on an acoustic guitar if you wanted to.
That's right. And it sounds really good. It sounds really good on a piano.
Have you performed it on a piano before?
We did an instrumental version of it, actually, with piano, acoustic guitar, drums and violin. Our mate Jenny McCullough, who joined us for those COVID safe gigs that we did, and we opened up the set actually with Cobra Kane acoustic instrumental. It's interesting you were saying that you'll write some of the stuff you've been writing more was about you'd have a couple melodies and it was a little bit more electronic, and a lot of it was about the feel and the energy of it. When you write songs in that way, does it teach you anything when you then go back to writing them in the more traditional sense? Yes. Well, I'm constantly always experimenting with songwriting, and I've spoken a lot about when I was younger, kind of coming from a country background, and Mason and I kind of both stem from that, and writing songs and that were very lyric based and whatnot. But one thing I've been trying to do, I guess, which is fun that you can do with the electronic stuff, but it doesn't always work, or you have to is, so I'll finish saying, I do this, I tangent, but is that you can write songs in their electronic format with just one or two ideas and the big energy that beats and production bring, which can really, really, really be helpful for bringing an energy and what type of melody you're going to write to a song. If you've already got like a reverb kind of high intensity electronic beat or something like that going on with a kind of pulsing synth bass line or something, and you're like, okay, I'm in this mood, so this is, you're not going to write a country song over that, which is interesting. And then if you write maybe 5 or 6 of songs that maybe have a similar energy, it is very easy to grab the stems and join lots of those songs. But what I've been doing is joining those songs. I've just was working on this song with the guys on the weekend where it was like 3 songs that I've joined, but it didn't work as well as I wanted to for it to sound cohesive. So what we've done is we've taken the melodies, which are really great melodies, but brought them down to just the piano and voice and kind of brought it into a more Beatles-esque vibe, which is such a crazy way of writing. To be honest, it's not the best way of writing. I'm kind of working that out, but it is interesting, and you do come up with a combination of melodies that you probably wouldn't normally get to, especially when they've stemmed from like high intensity electronic music and then make their way back into a piano ballad.
I think I remember reading an interview with the Pet Shop Boys once, I believe, and they spoke about that, where they believe that if it's a truly great melody, you can strip it back to just the vocal and one instrument, and that's how you can really get a sense of whether it's going to work before you bring in all the electronic stuff. You're kind of just doing it in reverse a little bit. Yes,
that's right. But I'm realizing now, and I've heard other producers say it, and some really big producers who talk about they won't even touch a computer until they know that the song is amazing. They won't even give it that energy of production, which I have kind of done in reverse. But I've also learnt a lot along the way because I've always been so songwriter based, and I've learnt a lot, and I want to move into production into the future. So I guess it was a part of my skills, personally, that I kind of needed to work on, and I'm glad I have, because I haven't forgotten how to write a song.
How, when you said you had those 3 ideas that you joined together, when it comes down to them individually, when you're writing them for the first time, will you try and complete the idea? Will you try and have the full thought come out, or will you come back to it over various sessions?
You definitely a lot of the ideas, so this is the way the 3 of us normally work. We will bring these ideas to a session, I'm obviously just talking about my personal experience, but it is similar for all of us. So if Mason has a song that has 2 or 3 ideas in it that maybe isn't completely finished, or Tommy has voice memos or basically songs at the same vibe, and then we all come together and really go under the microscope then with it. And that's when, it's the beauty of collaboration, which is why lots of pop artists or solo artists do a lot of songwriting sessions. We're lucky with Dma'S that we don't have to do that all the time, even though we have started doing that over the last year, writing with other artists. It's not necessarily for Dma'S, but we we have our own collaboration within the band, and it's a really unique and beautiful thing.
When you go into those sessions, and you're writing with other people, do you learn different things about your own process?
Oh yeah, every time. And when you're working with different singers and people who write different genres of music, it's a really amazing experience. I had one of those sessions recently with a dance producer called What So Not. It stemmed as just a session that him and I were working on, and then we got Tommy in to sing, and then Tommy brought some parts, and then we got Mason to bring his parts in, and now we're releasing it tomorrow, actually, which is super exciting. And it's kind of got a bit of the Prodigy, I guess, esque kind of stuff in it. Yeah.
Nice. You're a big Streets guy as well, aren't you?
Oh, Tommy is.
Tommy is, okay.
Yeah, I'm more of a Underworld Chemical Brothers kind of lad.
I think, did you ever come on to Underworld when you were playing in Scotland, like Nux, Born Slippy?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
No.
But I do remember, I remember watching them after we played, what's that festival? Lowlands Festival in Holland. And that's when I first saw them live. And that was kind of one of the first moments when I decided that I wanted to learn and get into, more electronic side of production.
Do you think about that music differently after you see it live? Because it can be such like a clubby type thing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really, I would try and listen to lots of, and also there's lots of different types of electronic music. I'm not particularly a huge fan of like particularly housey stuff. I don't mind it. Like I like some deep house and like stuff like that. But there's definitely particular genres that I prefer, and lots of the underworld kind of ravey stuff I really, really dig.
It's interesting to think about, we're talking there about the live again, when it comes back to Brixton. When was it? I mean, when you listen back to that live record or you watch the videos from it, does it kind of spark memories that you otherwise wouldn't have had? Like, does it remind you of things that you wouldn't have if you didn't have it recorded in such a way?
Well, yeah. I guess mainly in the sense of there was maybe a part of us that was starting to take for granted live touring, particularly our gigs in the UK. Not that we were taking it for granted, they were obviously always super special, but I just like any job, you kind of get a bit fatigued, and we're a pretty hard touring band. We kind of hadn't really stopped for maybe 5 or 6 years touring, and we'd been consistently releasing records on the 2-year cycle, which kind of only gives you a couple of months off before you release your next record. And I will never take that for granted again after COVID, because watching those gigs and the energy and playing live and stuff like that, it's you realize how important. I think lots of people. I've spoken to a lot of musicians like this, because you can touring can be pretty hectic and hard on when you're missing your family and your relationships and stuff like that. But yeah, it's also your main form of income, and there's those really special moments, and I just can't wait to have them again in the UK. In particular, because the crowds are so good over there for us.
Do you think you would have come to that realization anyway had COVID not happened?
I think so. I think as I'm maturing and growing up, I definitely appreciate them a lot more. I guess it's easy when you're a bit younger and life feels like it's going really fast, and do you know what I mean? And you don't really stop and think about that. But as you kind of mature a little bit more, you realize how special those kind of moments are, and you stop taking bits for granted, I think, naturally.
Are you a bit, once you have that revelation, are you a little bit more in the moment too? Are you able to kind of take stock of them while they're happening rather than just afterwards?
Oh, yeah. I'm much more in the moment. Yeah. With kind of everything that I do, not just music stuff, just even watching a band, because I bet a lot of people didn't think that maybe Dma'S was going to be their last gig for such a long time when they were watching that. And yeah, I definitely think about that a bit. And I think about it when I'm in sessions writing with people, and all facets of my life. I guess that's a thing of COVID, is it's allowed people to stop and slow down and rethink some facets of their life that may have otherwise been rushing by them.
I mean, did Edinburgh do a similar thing for you when you moved there? When you kind of completely changed your surroundings in that way? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my partner Hayley and I, we like to do that quite a bit. She's a songwriter as well, and I feel like it's really good to move where you live and to meet new people, and because I think it's really conducive to perspective, and which helps you with your songwriting, I think.
Had you lived in Melbourne before as well? You're saying you just moved there?
Not really. I was here for a couple of months before I moved to Edinburgh. But no, I've always lived in Sydney. So, and then after we came back from Edinburgh, we were kind of like, oh, we're not really ready to go back to Sydney yet. So I've moved to Melbourne here, and I don't think we're going to go back. I think Melbourne's have you ever been?
No, I've never had the privilege of going to Australia. So far away. It's like other side of the world from here.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But it's a pretty amazing city. I would kind of imagine I'd compare Melbourne and Sydney to maybe Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Okay.
As in they're just two great cities, but I guess Sydney is a little bit. It's like the tourist hub, it's aesthetically very beautiful, but it's a little more boring and corporate and money driven. Where like a Glasgow and Melbourne has, you know, amazing live music and bars and stuff. And it's a bit more grungy and, you know, it's a bit more lively and
something a little bit more raw about it.
Yeah, that's right. And it breeds creativity. It's also, it gets bloody cold down here. Obviously not compared to Scotland cold, but Australia, it gets like Australia cold down here, you know, in the winter.
How cold's Australia cold?
Oh, like, Haley, how cold does it get here in winter? You reckon? 6? Lower than 6.
That's pretty cold, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I reckon probably down to 4, maybe.
Man.
I reckon it could. Maybe not during the day, but at night. But either way, it's cold enough, and it keeps people indoors, and I think that breeds creativity, you know, as opposed to hanging out doing sit-ups on Bondi Beach or some shit.
Well, boredom always breeds creativity, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
That was like you were saying. What was the pub you used to stay above a few years back? We were speaking about at the start.
Oh, we used to be near the Lord Gladstone.
Yeah, I mean, was it? Was that the one that was kind of slightly out of town?
Oh, sorry, no, that was the Botany Bay Hotel.
Yeah, was that kind of a similar thing when you were there, when you're kind of a little bit further out the city? You know, where you're sitting there about, you kind of just stay indoors and write songs.
Yeah, that was actually. I remember doing like the Time of Money demo there, and a lot of songs actually. Maybe even like the first Cobra, not the first Cobra Cane, but a version. We tried to do Cobra Cane on our first album actually, and it really didn't come into fruition until The Glow, which was pretty funny. But yeah, that was a similar vibe. Also, we didn't have that much money back then, and I was living with Mason, and we were lucky enough because we were mates with the chef, and there was a new pub, and he had all these vouchers that they were handing out to people around the area where you come in just to get people into the pub, and you get a $5 meal,
yeah,
which is like, you know, what's that, like pretty much £2.50 for a pub meal.
Wow.
Like a big chicken schnitzel or something. Anyway, it was like just trying to get people into the pub. Anyway, he gave us like 100 of them.
So you lived like kings.
Yeah, we were eating like pub meals for like every meal of the day and stuff, which was kind of cool. But we didn't really, that worked for us because we didn't have much money. And you know, so to get into town, it was $30. It'd be like $30 or $35 each way. So you'd already spend $60 before you'd even get into the pub, you know. So we definitely just spent a lot of time there. Oh, and we lived above a pub. So
how long after you moved to Melbourne do you start to see it in your songwriting and start to see it impact your creativity?
Oh, straight away.
Straight away, wow.
Yeah, straight away, I reckon. The first 2 months that we were here, the song hasn't been released yet, but it's called, there's a song called We Are Midnight, which was like I wrote pretty much straight away as I moved down here. And same with Edinburgh. Hello Girlfriend was mainly Mason's song, but I'd written the chorus in Edinburgh, and I wrote it in the first 5 minutes that we moved in there. And I think this, yeah, you know, it's like the first thing I did.
Do you feel that before you start writing? Can you feel the creativity coming in that way and the kind of urge to write?
Sometimes. I had it a while ago with another song that hasn't been released yet, which I'm really excited about. And I was lying in bed thinking how I played a song at a party in front of someone I admire. And I was like, why the fuck did I pick that song? And I was trying to think of what song I should have picked. And then I couldn't really think of one. And then so I started thinking, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, lying in bed. And then I was like, what type of song do I wish I had written? And then I started singing a melody in my head, and then I came out and wrote it. That's a moment when you feel like that. But I don't get them as often now because I've kind of fallen into a bit of a 9 to 5 format with songwriting.
That's discipline though. Like if you sit down 9 to 5 every day, you're guaranteed to have ideas.
That's right. Do
the ideas differ in any way though when you like compare them to the ones that just come out randomly at like 1 in the morning? Yeah,
they do. Well, those ones, like the one I was referring to before, you normally finish most of the song there and then. Where a lot of the 9 to 5 ones they kind of take a little bit longer for me sometimes, but they're normally not as good. I have noticed that with an idea, if it doesn't start flowing really instantly, there's a reason for it. No, that's not completely true. There's been heaps of ideas that we've resurrected. They're really great melodies, but they just haven't found a proper home yet.
Do they get resurrected when you take them into the band, though? Or is it maybe like when you get the other guys involved, they kind of get re-energized a little bit, or they're able to add their own spin on it?
That's exactly it. Particularly when Tommy starts singing it. One thing, and we kind of all do this together. But we'll bring an idea through, and Mason will alter a melody, but also he loves altering. He's really great with chords, so can put some really different cool chord combinations forward to songs. And as soon as Tommy starts singing a song, he naturally just puts his own energy onto it, and his own kind of vibe. And whether that's me bringing it to them two, or Mason bringing it to us, a similar result, or Tommy bringing an idea to me and Mason, it's a similar result happens.
Would you ever, when you were writing those ideas, would you ever think about how they sound with his voice? Is that ever in your mind?
Oh yeah, yeah. I had about a year there where I would only write in Tommy's key, which was interesting because I would sing them in his key, which is normally like a fifth higher than my voice, or sometimes a seventh higher than where I sing. It kind of worked for me sometimes, except for when I'd have to send the demo over. Though I started using auto-tune on my demo, which helps a bit more getting the idea across. But yeah, so if you hear my voice and I sound like a dying cat because I'm singing completely out of my range, and then some people will hear them and go, I don't know if that's a good song, Johnny. And then Tommy sings it, and then they realize that there's something special actually in there. But I've tried to stop that a bit. I've tried to go back to just writing in my key and then transposing.
I mean, again, is there a difference in the ideas when you're approaching it with that framework in mind, that you're going to write a song in this key, when you're putting that limitation on yourself?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying before, I just think it's really important to keep, to try stuff like that. And, to try and write songs too low for you or too high for you, or, and it's especially, sorry, I take that back. It's mainly if you're writing for another singer. If you're writing, obviously, if I was the singer in the band, I obviously wouldn't do that. Actually, that's not true either. I take that back, because you could write a melody that you wouldn't normally write because you're singing too high for yourself, and it would actually become quite unique. And then you realize that it's too high for yourself, so you bring it down a fifth or a tone or whatever like that, and then it probably could still come into its own light.
And there's someone as well, when you're just reaching for it and it's just out with your reach and you're kind of just getting your fingertips on it. You hear that, I think, a little bit sometimes. Like that feeling, like that excitement.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's a funny one.
You were saying you were going into those writing sessions with other people. Are you ever writing for their voice again? Like in the same way that you think about Tommy's voice, will you think about someone else's voice when you're in those sessions? Oh,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I try, and one thing I've been doing a lot actually, and I think I used to do naturally when I was a kid, but I've been doing a lot, is I imagine the person being on stage and singing it to a crowd. So like, I know, like, it's safe.
Just so you can get the feeling of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I would imagine, like, if we're playing a song and like you're playing the chords for the intro, and then it hits a part, and then like I'd imagine kind of Tommy singing it to a festival or something like that, and imagine myself being in the crowd, and what would I want to hear if I was in the crowd watching a band, and what note would I want to hear come out, or that kind of thing. And I've been doing that quite a bit with artists, and if they're different type of artists, if I imagine being in the crowd watching them and going, what would blow me away right now? What type of melody or what kind of energy?
Would you ever do that when you're constructing a beat as well? Oh,
yeah, 100%. 100%. Lots of beats that I kind of make, I imagine them as like a walk-on song, or as if a set was, a Dma'S set was opening and all the lights were down, and then a crazy electronic beat kind of came on, or something like that.
What does that kind of influence more? Does it influence the textures or the structure of it? like the arrangement?
No, it just sets the tone of the energy of basically the biggest part of the song. It's what I find. If you start writing a song, which I do a lot, I was doing it this morning actually, and had quite an aggressive drum beat that had a really big energy to it. And then you start writing chords to it and singing. But most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, that's going to be the biggest moment of the song in some regards. You know, if you start a song with just pads and a vocal, and then it builds up and the bass comes in, and then there's a pre-chorus, and then by the time when you hit the first chorus, you bring in that initial energy that you wanted. That's going to be the same emotion that I guess the listeners feeling or hearing as you had when you were making it. So like one thing I'll do is I'll kind of create quite a big beat and build a song idea on top of it, and then just mute the beat, and then mute the bass, and then mute everything except for maybe the acoustic and the vocal, and then try and build up to something to that to the pinnacle, I guess.
And we've kind of come back to this a few times. This idea of like constructing a moment, like every like individual part of a song, whether it be, you know, the first verse, the bridge, or the chorus, it has to be a moment. At what point do you start thinking about the role of the individual moments playing the song overall, or even playing the record overall?
I think some songs I think about moments. I do, which I think are really important. I definitely thought about that when we were doing something like the pre-chorus to Game of Changing, especially because it goes from like a fifth to a fourth chord. So it's not on the tonic at all. So there's that anticipation that, oh, I want for you to see, you know, that kind of vibe. And then you get the release of Mason's melody, which is the riff, you know, and you really get that release. So I'm definitely thinking about like that. But then I won't be thinking about that really writing a song like Step Up the Morphine. Then when I first played Step Up the Morphine to Tommy, and then I had that chord change where it says, sometimes I wonder why we bother at all. He'll be the one. Tommy's really good with that. Going, that's a moment. Like we need to make that a thing. And he was the one who kind of picked that point out and highlighted it in that song. And he's got a really great ear for that. And once again, it just comes back to the three of us collaborating, I guess.
What happens after he points that out? Where does it go from there?
And then we try and structure, I guess, the other parts to kind of flow into that moment. Where the lyrics started, that's a big thing of coming back to is, and I guess they are moments in themselves, but having really great lyrics can push a song along so much further. Like it doesn't even have to be the craziest melody, you know, which I think a lot of people forget, is that they're always trying to think of writing really big melodies, but sometimes a melody doesn't even have to really move at all if the lyrics are brilliant.
Yeah. You need both though. You can't have one without the other. That's
right. And well, you can, but it, you know, maybe people won't like it as much. Or you know, which happens a lot. I do it all the time, which isn't good. And that's why when you do pre-production and you get into the nitty-gritty of your song before it's released, you should have thought about all these parts, I think.
When you're writing a song lyrically, is it a case of, will each line inspire the one that follows? Does it kind of take on a momentum like that, or do they kind of come sporadically?
Depends how strong the idea is, I think. For example, Step Up, like I knew it was a tribute to my late grandmother, and I knew about that, and then in the air I knew it was about, you know, kind of letting go and missing someone who had traveled to the other side of the world. So you kind of know what the lyrics are about. You know, you can write them kind of more specifically, but that's another thing. If you're writing a song, like a lot of dance music is done on energy, you know, and vibe, if the lyrics don't have a direct meaning, that's why I guess a lot of dance music are just about like love and feeling good, or have, you know, almost subtle drug references that overlap with feelings of love and stuff like that, because that's kind of the energy that those songs have. If you have a song that was already written and then as almost like a folk or country song that was really super lyric based. It doesn't have to be folk or country, but then the dance music is put on top. You can definitely tell when a song's done like that as opposed to the other way around.
Would you ever flip it? Like, would you ever try and write a beat with the feeling of something really intimate in mind? And then could you try and write a folk song with the kind of broader, more, the kind of more raw emotions that would primarily more be associated with what produces dance music? Have you ever flipped it in that way?
Oh yeah, I have, totally. Not in something that I've been working on for the next record. I've kind of done that in that regard. I guess we're kind of like, we realize there's just no right or wrong answer to writing a song, is there? It's there's so many different ways of doing it. One thing I've been doing recently actually is just trying to read a bit more. This is amazing. I'll get a page and a half into a book and I'll instantly be so inspired to write a song. It's actually, I reckon that's a good one.
Can you see exactly what you're latching onto after that page and a half? Do you know what you're tapping into that's going to make you want to create?
Oh yeah, totally. And normally it's it will be just like an adjective, the way that someone's just like described something that you've never thought of before or something like that.
Yeah, kind of, giving you a new perspective on it. In the same way that would happen, if you brought the song to the band. It's just this idea of constantly refreshing that perspective. Same reason you move as well.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, man. I enjoyed that.
Hey, oh good. I kind of felt like I was rambling a bit. I tend to do that.
That's what you want in a podcast, though.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. No, that is what you want.
That's when you get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Ramble.
No, I was saying some stuff I've never really thought about before, which is nice. You can go and tackle every single facet of songwriting, like not every single facet, but from writing poetry and lyrics to writing a song on acoustic, electric, or producing stuff. You know what I mean? You can start at different points, but at the end, by the time the track's finished, they're all those parts are super important.